In November 2011, Bank of America was fined $410 million for engaging in a practice called debit resequencing. Just 4 months later, in February 2012, Chase Bank paid a $110 million class action settlement for engaging in the exact same practice. Despite more than $500,000 in payouts in just 2 different scandals, it's estimated that nearly half of all banks still practice debit resequencing. It's obvious why. Sure, the bank may have to pay several $100 million in fines, but they can easily make billions of dollars before getting caught. A simple risk-reward analysis deems that all financial institutions aiming to maximize immediate profits should do this. Rob $2 billion from your customers, pay $100 million back in fines. Rob $5 billion from your customers, pay $300 million back in fines. Rinse and repeat. And it's so easy to engage in debit resequencing. In fact, this video will teach you how the banks do this, as well as what you can do to make sure it never happens to you. Let's pretend you have a checking account with a fictitious bank. We'll call it the Chase Fargo of Kentucky. Like all checking accounts, the one you're enrolled in at the Chase Fargo of Kentucky has an overdraft policy. If you withdraw more money than the total balance, you'll have to pay the bank $35. Right now, you have exactly $1,000 sitting in your checking account. Let's say you wake up one Friday morning and pay $800 to your landlord, leaving you with $200 left. You're driving to work when your car starts beeping. The check your engine light is on, flashing next to the fuel gauge, where the line is hovering just above the E. You stop by at the nearest gas station and fill your tank up with $30 worth of the sweet guzzling gasoline. And while waiting for the fuel to finish pumping, you decide to stop inside the gas station convenience store to pick up some breakfast. You buy $10 worth of those rotating hot dogs, another $10 worth of coffee, $10 worth of cigarettes, and a $5 bag of chips. You have $135 left in your checking account. You're finished with the gas station trip now, and you drive to work. Clock in, do a diligent job of making your boss a lot of money, and clock out. On your way back home, you decide to get your check engine light checked. The bell tire technician pokes around your engine, finds the cause of the check engine light, repairs the issue, and slaps you with a $250 service fee. Uh-oh. You have just overdrafted your account by $115. Now, this is where the story would end if your bank didn't practice debit resequencing. You just have that $115 taken out of your next paycheck, along with the $35 overdraft fee, and simply move on with your life. But the Chase Fargo of Kentucky practices debit resequencing. You check your checking account's balance statement that Sunday and are shocked to see that instead of paying $35 in overdraft fees, you've actually paid $210 in overdraft fees. What gives? This is the power of debit resequencing. Banks have 3 unique abilities which allow them to do this. First, the bank can put charges on hold for several days after you make a purchase. In other words, after you buy something, the bank can simply choose to not remove the money from your account's balance. This means you simultaneously owe the bank money while having money in your checking account to spend. The second unique ability banks have is, for lack of a better way to describe it, they can split a single transaction up into multiple parts. When you're out in the gas station convenience store, you bought $35 worth of food and necessities in one go. Normally, we would expect all of these purchases to just be one single transaction on the bank's end. Not so. Banks have the ability to itemize your transactions, meaning each thing you bought, regardless of how many times you actually swiped your card, will count as a separate transaction. You bought 4 things from the gas station convenience store: the sausage, coffee, cigarettes, and chips. The banks have the ability to split that one single transaction into 4 separate transactions. 1 for the sausage, 1 for the coffee, 1 for the cigarettes, and 1 for the chips. The third unique ability is where all the magic happens. Banks have the ability to reorder the charges in your account in whichever manner they see fit. Normally, we would all assume that the bank charges that occurred first chronologically would be the first charges to go through. In the earlier example, you paid your landlord first, followed by the gas station pump, and then the various gas station purchases, and finally the car maintenance bill. Around 2 decades ago, some Ivy Leaguers found a way to combine all 3 of these unique abilities to really screw over poor people. Here's what they figured out. If instead of having the charges hit your account in chronological orders, the banks could instead order them in descending order, meaning the largest charges hit first. Instead of your bank balance going from $1,000 to $200 to $170 to $135 to negative $115, they could instead have it go from $1,000 to $200 to negative $50 to negative $80 to negative $115. What does this do? Your checking account still ends up in the same balance of negative $115 regardless of the order of the charges. But by having them hit you in descending order, they're able to put you into an overdraft situation 2 transactions earlier. Putting you into an overdraft status 2 transactions earlier means that the banks just took 2 more overdraft fees from you. Now, this is where the bank's second ability comes in, the ability to split transactions up. Normally, when you buy multiple things at once, the bank processes all those items as one single transaction. It's just simply easier on the bank's end to process one transaction of 5 items instead of 5 transactions containing 1 item each. But if the bank wanted to make a couple extra bucks in exchange for slightly more complicated work, they could split one single transaction up into multiple parts. So now, your bank balance goes from $1,000 to $200 to negative $50 to negative $80 to negative $90 to negative $100 to negative $110 before landing at negative $115. Each time the account goes further into the negative, a new overdraft fees gets applied. Meaning, your quick stop at the gas station triggered 5 individual overdraft fees amounting to $175. $175 for just $30 worth of gas and $35 worth of snacks. You've spent nearly 3x the amount of money in overdraft fees at the gas station than you actually did buying things at the gas station. Slap on an additional $35 in overdraft fees from your $250 engine checkup, and you've just given the Chase Fargo of Kentucky $210 for overdrafting your account just one time. So now you know how debit resequencing works, which begs the question, how do you avoid debit resequencing? The most obvious way is to keep a close eye on your bank account statement and keep your balance as far above zero as possible. Now, this isn't always possible. Debit resequencing is a technique aimed exclusively at the lower income folks who don't exactly have a lot of money saved up. So the next best thing you can do to avoid falling victim to this trap is to simply call up the bank's customer service line if they ever try to pull the wool down over your eyes. As long as you're cordial and don't turn into a fully fledged Karen, the bank will credit your account with the amount that they've taken out. There is one more important thing that you have to know about before exiting the video. All banks let you withdraw money anytime you want. If you swipe your debit card at Taco Bell on a Saturday night, the transaction is still going to go through as long as you have enough money to cover the purchase. But here's where it gets slightly insidious. While you can withdraw money 7 days a week, the vast majority of banks only let you deposit money 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, during their normal business hours. What this means is that you might get paid on Fridays, but you won't actually have the money until the next Monday morning. If you're planning on buying anything during the weekend, you might be spending money you don't actually have. Boom. Overdraft fees. Unfortunately, there's no good remedy for this. You could try to ask your employer if you could be paid earlier in the week. Your mileage may vary, but it's pretty doubtful that this will work since most companies like to keep payday consistent for all the employees. It just makes payroll counting that much easier on their end. But hey, you might be able to change your company's payment structure if enough of your coworkers know about the insidious dangers of debit resequencing. So feel free to share this video with as many people as you feel comfortable sharing this video with. In the meantime, stay careful and keep a close eye on your banking account statements.